So today I want to talk about the story of the Buddha, the one who started it all. Yeah. The reason why anybody meditates today is because of Siddhartha Gautama. And he was an Indian who lived in 2500 BC. No, 500 BC. He lived 2500 years ago. And he was so extraordinary. This guy, right? Okay. It was an interesting time because he was born a prince, right? He was going to rule his clan, the Sakya clan. But that wasn't his destiny. He had a different destiny. So at the time, there were these priests called Brahmins, and they were sort of the dominant religion. They were considered the highest caste, and they would preside over the rituals and ceremonies of the kings and the noblemen, who were called the Kshatriyas, and they're the ruling class, and they're also warriors.
Yeah.
The Brahmins would be their priests. And they would, they kind of relied on the Brahmins. The Brahmins claimed to have divine powers and connection with God and with the various gods that they believed in at the time. And so they knew these special incantations that only they knew. And they memorized the scriptures, and they were very proud of that sort of, that secret knowledge of the sacred sounds and things. And so that's what they would be doing, these sacred intonations at these ceremonies. And that was, like I said, that was the dominant religion of the time. But there was a countercultural religious movement called the Samanas. And the Samanas, this was a thriving movement. And what it was it was mainly made up of disillusioned Kshatriyas, right? And other classes as well, merchants, even sometimes the lower castes, but mostly it was a predominantly higher caste phenomena, right? They were disillusioned with, they had, just urbanized, which is interesting to note that it's a re-urbanization, because India in the distant past, like, how many, like 4 or 5 plus thousand years ago, there was a very sophisticated civilization, which collapsed probably due to drying land and rivers and climate changes. So their cities collapsed, and then they reverted to like a rural settlement way of life, smaller settlements. And then they were re-urbanizing in like the 6th century and into the 5th century when Siddhartha Gautama was born. Yeah. So he was a prince, and he ended up joining the Samanas, right? And they had all different kinds of, we call them sects, with all different kinds of philosophies, like every philosophy you can imagine. They're actually thoroughly recorded in the Pali Canon. And it's so fascinating because we tend to focus on Western philosophy, the history of Western philosophy, Greek in particular, and then into like the Judeo-Christian, Christ and, time zero. We count our time by Jesus Christ in the Western world, right? So, but in the 5th century BC, India had an absolutely like thoroughly developed philosophical world. Anyway, so Siddhartha Gautama was born into that milieu. He ended up becoming a samana because he found, so all of these Indians were seeking moksha. And moksha was liberation, right? And according to the Buddhist tradition, it was Buddha who actually found moksha. None of them had really had it. They hadn't liberated themselves. I know. Well, moksha, depending on if you're speaking an ancient dead language or the modern pronunciation. Or and it's not moksha. I am going to speak the English pronunciation of everything. Okay, so I'm going to call it moksha.
I just told you the way it's
moksha.
Said in India.
Said in India currently today. But it was a Pali word. That's a dead language. It's not in use anymore. And that pronunciation would have been slightly different from Sanskrit pronunciation and then the local dialects and this and that. But anyway, it's spelled
Let's
with
go by Western.
it's spelled with an A on the end, right? And
Let's go by
instead of
Western.
saying moksha, like which would probably be a better ancient pronunciation as well, I'm just gonna say moksha because that's what it looks like to a Western eye when you read it. Okay, so they were seeking that, and Buddha, this guy, he particularly was disturbed by the impermanent nature of all of the beauty and pleasure and luxury that he had around him, because apparently he led a very luxurious existence as a young prince, right? He had every pleasure imaginable available to him. He had a harem of women, entertainers, musicians to satisfy his every whim. He got married to a beautiful woman who, according to the tradition, he had many lifetime spanning love story with until his final birth. So we'll get into what it means to attain nirvana from a Buddhist perspective, because they believe in reincarnation from life to life to life. And the idea is that Buddha, he saw a problem with this impermanence and the suffering that it causes, right? And he just said, he pinpointed suffering as the main issue in human life, right? And everybody is attempting to mitigate and avoid suffering all the time, and of course happiness and all that. They're pursuing that, but very importantly, we're trying to make sure we don't suffer, right? So, and then he just noted that like suffering can be absolutely, like you can fall into the most extreme states of suffering as a human being, right? And so he was just curious about that, and he I guess he had this kind of existential, questioning where he thought, like, is there a way to solve this problem of suffering? And so he devoted his life. He left the palace. He left his wife. He had even his wife had given birth to a son. He left his son because he needed to answer this question: is, can this problem of suffering and impermanence be solved? Right? Because he saw it all ending in death, and he saw separation from, like the dying of your loved ones and everything. All this, he just thought, life is so wonderful, life is so perfect. This is a problem. We're going to be separated from all this one day, right? So he went to solve that problem, and he trained with a couple of meditation teachers, and he apparently quickly mastered those meditation techniques. And he said, this isn't it. Like, this isn't what I'm seeking. This isn't the solution to suffering that I've been seeking. So then he went with a group of 5 ascetics. Now, this was a big trend in the time, where people would do the most extreme practices you can ever possibly imagine. Apparently, there's still Indians doing extreme stuff today, but this was a big trend, right? The samanas, they loved doing this. Most of them were doing this. Most of them were like the other most predominant school, which still exists today. It's the only other one that exists today. It's not nearly as influential as Buddhism has been in the world, but it's called Jainism. There's 2 million adherents currently still existing in India. So that goes back. Yeah.
I know about Jainism very well because I have really close family. They are my neighbors, very close to me. Always treated me as their own kid. So I know about Jainism, but I will explain it to you
I can tell you what it used to be before Buddha.
Like what they actually do, but maybe in the next podcast when I have a word with them again about it.
Sure, but let me tell you about the origins of Jainism and some of the beliefs that they used to have before Buddha divested them of their wrong views. They still do a lot of the stuff that they used to do, just not as nearly as extreme. So the Jains of the Buddha's time, they believed that you needed to burn off all your old karma, and one of the ways you can help burn off your old karma is to torture your body. So they would torture their body. They would torture their body in many various ways, and they would also starve themselves to death. Quickly, rapidly, just kill themselves, because they thought that if they did that, they might attain this moksha. And Buddha pointed out that this is all very, very foolish. Now, I know that Jains today still starve themselves to death, but they usually do it in the late stages of life, and they do it slowly over a long period of time.
It's not about starving till death. It's more about having self-control over over the consumption of food
Mhm.
and the consumption of specific food types, and dedicating your mind and soul more towards, um, you can say, more towards the spiritual practices.
They were all doing these really extreme practices, and Buddha would point out that actually you're just creating more bad karma, right? So he divested of this idea that they could burn off past karma. So they stopped doing that. But basically, he went with these 5 ascetics who were doing the most extreme practices you could ever possibly imagine. They were starving themselves to the point where you could see their spines through their belly buttons until their eyes sunk deep in their skull. They looked like walking skeletons. They were on the verge of death, right? And he was on the verge of death. And one day he was off in seclusion doing these extreme practices and this extreme meditation, and he decided that he was not going to. Well, he was really striving for this enlightenment, right? And then there's different traditional sort of mythological stories. Some of them may be not the oldest strand of this, but in the original suttas, the oldest stories of this, it just says that he had a realization that this destruction of his own body was not the way to enlightenment. And he was a girl who had been making offerings to a tree, to the deity in a tree. Buddha happened to be sitting under this tree, or Siddhartha, as he was called at the time, the Bodhisattva, which means the person destined to become a Buddha. Buddha means awakened being, right? So he was awakened. And this is right near the time of his awakening here. So she thinks that he is the tree deity that she's been, because he looks very strange. So she thinks this man must be a god. Must be the god I've been offering to. So she offers him this milk and rice. And he has had this change of mind of what he should be doing. And he takes it and he eats it, right? And apparently one of his 5 ascetic companions sees him doing this and says, that Gautama, he's reverted to luxury. Let's abandon him. So the 5 ascetics abandon him. And then right after he's eaten this rice, then he goes and sits by another tree, which is now called the Bodhi tree. And that Bodhi tree is still existing today in a place called Bodh Gaya. It's not exactly the same tree, but it is in a way, because when that tree died, before it died, they took what's called a sapling off of it, which is a branch, and then they made it so that branch grew into another full tree. And so it's the same tree essentially that he was enlightened under. He sat at the base of that tree. He said, I vow, after he's just eaten his very first, solid food again, after 6 years of this extreme practice, right? He vows not to get up until he realizes the end of suffering, until he, finds this liberation. Right? And so he has his realization, and he has insight into the 4 Noble Truths, which I've explained in previous podcasts. And he realizes that it's craving and clinging, that the body isn't the enemy, right? You can maintain the body without craving. It's the nature, it's the craving itself. That's the link in the chain of dependent origination of suffering, the massive suffering that humans experience, right? So he breaks the link between feeling and craving, and grasping and clinging and suffering, right? So he just, now there's feeling, but the chain doesn't go on to create the loop that keeps us bound and keeps us not liberated, unfree, right? So he stopped craving completely, and then he was just simply experiencing life detached, right? Without suffering. So he calls it the highest happiness. This is nirvana, right? The highest happiness, the ultimate bliss, freedom from suffering, right? Complete release. And so that's the enlightenment of the Buddha. And then after that, he tries to think, who would understand this teaching, right? And the first people he thinks of are the meditation teachers that he first taught him. But he realizes that they're both dead. So he says, the group of 5 ascetics, they'll understand. So he goes to them. He gives his first teaching on the Dharma, which is called the Dhammacakka Sutta, the turning of the wheel of the Dharma in the world, because there was no true Dharma in the world at the time. Buddhism is a cyclical religious system, right, where they believe that there have been past Buddhas in this world. They call this a fortunate eon, because in this eon, on this planet, we've had 3 previous Buddhas. We're currently on the 4th. And then what happens is even the teaching of the Buddha is impermanent. Everything's impermanent, right? So in this world, eventually the teaching will be overshadowed by false teachings and will disappear from this world.
That's true.
And then when that happens, the tradition generally believes it's about a 5,000 year period, making us halfway through at 2,500 years. When the teaching is gone, a period of spiritual darkness will take over for a while, but then a new Buddha, through the forces of karma, the great magnet of the universe, will bring a new being in to self-awaken. That's what a Buddha does, is they self-awaken. They don't have a teacher, right? They awaken by themselves through their own merits and efforts of self-cultivation. So, and then they're actually able to teach. There's actually 2 types of Buddhas: a silent Buddha and like consummate Buddha, one who can actually express it, right? And you need a higher level of development to be one of those. You need to have the charisma, you need to have the riz to be able to teach, right? And then the silent Buddha, they develop themselves enough that they can awaken without a teacher, but they can't convey it to anyone because everyone's just, so mired in sensuality and delusion that there's no awakening anyone else for them. So they get to live the rest of their life fully enlightened but can't teach. And then,
I feel it's a choice that people make. And also, at times, it's more of the decision that you're making. Like right now, I know that you are making this decision of guiding people towards spirituality and towards Samadhi, and making people aware. Maybe that's in you, where you can convey it. You can convey it very well and explain it very well. And that's
I have really doubted myself, my ability to teach. I'm like, man, how can I teach this to people? Because it's really hard to teach to people, because it is. But I think I do have the ability. I think I've got enough verbal ability to be able to convey this idea. Okay, so he's awakened. He goes and he teaches he turns the wheel of Dharma. He tells them the 4 Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. That's basically his first teaching. And the core, everything else that he ever teaches, they say it fits within the 4 Noble Truths. Right? So it's like the elephant's footprint, all the other animals' footprints fit inside that. Every other teaching of the Buddha fits inside the 4 Noble Truths. So then he teaches the sermon on not self. After his first sermon, one of the 5 ascetics actually attains what's called the first stage of enlightenment. It's kind of like you see you see nirvana. You haven't been there yet, but it's like lightning crashes and you see the mountain, right? And that's, you've seen nirvana. So and then now that you know that it exists, you will go there. Because you know what nirvana is. You're like, it's an aha moment, right? You're not there yet, but you have your aha moment. So one of them, only one, and then eventually they all become the first monks, and they all attain full enlightenment. He gets other disciples along the way. There's a million fascinating stories of this, right? But somewhere along the way, somewhere early on, he teaches the Anapanasati Sutta. So shout out to the viewer who commented on my podcast that the breath meditation I was talking about is called Anapana and is of Indian origin. I promised him that I would record a podcast today about the origin. So he taught the Anapanasati Sutta, right? And that's where he details in great detail, wonderful detail, more detail than I can give here, because I'm not a super genius like the Buddha was, right? But he details every aspect of the practice of breath meditation. I highly recommend you check out the Anapanasati Sutta. Another one is the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which are mindfulness of the body, mindfulness, and that includes the breath, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of mind, and mindfulness of Dhamma. And Dhamma, basically the teachings of the Buddha, right? Which is a bunch of categorizations of truth, right? So just being aware of all that, because you can't just look at your body and all this stuff, right? Like you're not a cow. You're not just like chewing cud, just conscious, like doing nothing. You have to actually be applying wisdom. You have to be like testing reality against these teachings to see if everything's impermanent, to see if it's unsatisfactory, to see if it's not self, right? And then so these, you have to be applying the Dharma teachings and just realizing that it corresponds, and then seeing the truth of what you're perceiving, right? Because it's a whole system. It's a system of observation and recognizing the truth, right? Which is taught to you by the great teacher, the Buddha, right? And so it's a really wonderful story. He has a 45-year-long teaching career, which is much longer than Jesus Christ, who unfortunately only lived 3 years before he was killed. But the Buddha was he started a massive movement, a massive monastic order, right? And it's I really think that it impacted the world so incredibly. Like this history is so fascinating, and I will do whole other episodes, many other episodes, where I talk more about the history of how this idea, how this teaching and the practice and the way of life and the whole ethos spread throughout the world, right? Because after this 45-year teaching career where he, there's so many great stories of how he teaches people, like the types of people who join this monastic order, how some of them are really like the Mozarts and the Beethovens of it, like they're really prodigious, right? He has prodigious students, and they become his foremost students, and some of them are great at teaching, and some of them are great at psychic powers and asceticism and stuff like that. Like some of them are have an extraordinary memory, like his loyal servant Ananda, who was his cousin, who becomes his personal attendant and memorizes the entire, like everything the Buddha ever speaks. And then because he had this incredible memory. And then there's another monk who was a master of the code of discipline for the monks. So they have their specializations, right? They have their unique abilities that allowed this thing to be packaged so well in this monastic order. It's the longest running social structure in history by far. It's the longest running, like, unbroken corporation in history, right? Like what do we have? We got the Byzantine Empire or whatever, 700 years, something like that, right? Nothing compared to the 2,500 years of the Buddhist monastic Sangha, right? So it's just fascinating, and it's fascinating the way that it works too, because they don't cultivate their own food; they just cultivate their minds, right? And they exist as teachers, they exist as examples, as a light in the world, and so people actually feed them, right? So they have this concept of merit and good karma, right? So if you feed a monk who is striving to attain nirvana, you are doing a good karma. So this is going to return to you. You're going to these actions have fruits, right? So the monks, that's how they live, and they don't they're not noisy about this process. They have a bowl. People go out of their way to feed them, right? Like the monks will typically in Asia, they will just walk silently through the village, with their eyes, downcast, a plow's yoke in front, like as if they're plowing a field while they walk with their bowl. And then lay people will actually wait alongside the road to offer food into the monks' bowls. And it could be something as small as a lump of rice, or it could be anything. It could be like fine, foods. So, but the monks just accept whatever they get, and they don't eat after noon, like I said, right? That food is expired by noon. They have to throw it out if the sun reaches the center of the sky. So, and that's how they live. Super simple. They don't have that. They make their needs very few, so they're not a burden to anyone, right? They're just like bees gathering a little bit of nectar, right? And so that's how they do that. And like I said, 45 years, amazing. And then the whole story, everything. I want to tell this in a little more detail. Unfortunately, we're a little pressed for time today. We both have to work today. But that's the story of the Buddha. And then like the history after that is so cool too. India becomes a Buddhist country under the Emperor Ashoka.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact time frame, but it's something like around 280, 250 BC. And he sends missionaries throughout the known world as far as Ptolemy's kingdom, which is Egypt, as far as Southeast Asia, as far like everywhere. He sends these Buddhist missionaries, and that's why Buddhism spreads throughout the known world. It actually, this is the crazy thing, people don't realize this, but it actually did. These ideas were, I'm sure, well known when Jesus was coming up in his time and place, because Greece had Buddhist kings in Bactria. They had coins with Buddha on them. Greeks invented the Buddha statue. Greece ruled Jesus's land for 200 years before the Romans conquered it. So, and there was, thriving trade, and these traders were Buddhist. Okay, the idea that he didn't know Buddhist ideas is ridiculous. And I would also venture to say, everything novel that Jesus said, everything that was a shock to his Jewish countrymen, was Buddhist, right? It was these were Buddhist ideas, and I call them Buddhist ideas not because necessarily, I could be wrong about the fact that he was actually importing these ideas, right? But they are ideas that were taught by Buddhists in the world 500 years before Jesus taught them. They were revolutionary in Jesus's time and place. And I'm not discounting the possibility that he originated them in his own time and place. But I would like it to be known that these ideas were existent in the world 500 years before him. Okay? And I will go into specifics about what those are, but that's not what this episode is about. This episode is about the Buddha, his story, his awakening, how he taught breath meditation, and the path to enlightenment, the Eightfold Path, which I think I've concluded that quick, brief telling of that story.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we can go more in detail in our next episode.
Okay, so the story of the Buddha itself, we can talk more
in depth about the story of Buddha.
In depth about the 45-year teaching career, because there are some doozies in there. Like, there's some great stories.
Yeah, like I'm sure that the audience as well as you would definitely like to share the various experiences or various experiences of Buddha in the form of stories. And I'm sure that the audience would love to hear that as well.
Yeah, no, I do. I'll review some of my favorites, and then we'll talk about those. And then the spread of Buddhism. There's lots there too. Like Ashoka himself. I just saw an AI trailer somebody made, an 8-minute long trailer. It's not great, but it's the idea. It's Ashoka. It's a movie about Ashoka and him spreading the knowledge throughout the world. People going on these journeys to spread the knowledge. So it's just like that is a fascinating story, right? Because how do we know about that? He erected pillars all over India, and not pillars, but just edicts, stone edicts and pillars, with inscriptions on them that said how he made all of India, he conquered all of India and turned it into a Buddhist kingdom. And it's just so fascinating. And so it spread into Alexander the Great conquered parts of India, and some of these kings that ended up ruling there became Buddhist.
Yeah.
So that's so fascinating. And then there's even on one of Ashoka's stone edicts, he says that there were 30,000 Greek monks, Greek Buddhist monks, Greek Buddhist monks, 30,000 attending a council, right? 30,000 Ionian monks, bhikkhus. Like, what? Where's that in the history books? How come no one taught me that in school? Right? So it's just fascinating. And this is hundreds of years before Jesus was born. It's like, it's crazy. History is a crazy thing. And these spice routes it was Buddhist. Like the Eastern world and the Western world, to think that there's no there's connection. There's been connection since long before then. right? So of course they trade ideas too. Are you kidding me? They don't trade ideas. The East and the West have been in contact forever. We created a false sense of separation. It's a false, it's an ethnocentrism. It's a false sense of separation. There's never been a separation between East and West. That was a lie. That was a lie created by people who were trying to protect their own in-group, right? The in-group. East versus West. It's always us and them. It's not us and them. It's humanity. It's team humanity.
I feel after moving to Canada and being here for so many years, I do believe that it's not about any specific religion or not about any specific thought process or upbringing that you are following. It's about what kind of a human you are. And it's either a good human or evil human or a bad human.
Or something in between. You could be like
something in between.
You could be okay.
Sure. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're right.
It's at the end of the day, humanity comes first. That's what I follow. And I feel
morality. I think it's goodness. I think if you're good, you're good. If you're bad, you're bad. It doesn't matter what you are. It doesn't matter if you're Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim.
Yeah, exactly.
What else is there? Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I feel that's more important.
No.
Like first people need to be humans first to everyone else, and then the religion and then the spirituality part comes in play. Yeah.
Well, my idea is that morality is a universal thing. So it's like, it doesn't matter what you believe even. If you're good, you're going to have good results.
Yeah.
You're on the path to heaven.
Yeah.
Right? If you're bad.
And I think it's also about you being a good human has nothing to do with what people are going to project on you or say or think about a specific concept that you need to follow or a specific thing that you need to preach or like I'm from India. I know this one thing where we do follow like specific religious practices. We do have specific things for specific occasions. But for me, honestly, it's more about at the end of the day, we all are humans and we all worship one God and He exists or it exists for sure. It's a universal power. And you need to be spiritually connected within yourself more to know and be a good person. That's what humanity is, which is just directly linked with enlightenment as well, because when you know yourself and when you know the way out of the sufferings, the less you suffer, the more you can be good to the outside world as well. The more you're suffering inside, the more grudges, the more anger, the more resentment you will have. And then that would reflect on your overall actions towards others as well. So when a person is fully content, when a person is fully content within himself or herself, that is something which would automatically reflect into their good karma and into their action.
Well, I think truth is universal. And the most interesting thing too is that it doesn't, like, if you're from India, if you're thinking in a mostly kind of Hindu milieu, then it's like the idea of enlightenment or the exact teaching of enlightenment is there. So you have that, right? And you have that.
There are very few people know that.
I think, and that's one of the issues that I'm trying to get to here is that the real contentment and the real, coming to the end of suffering is something most people, especially in the West, are unaware of that it exists. But in the East, I think many of them are aware of the idea. Many of them are aware of the idea of like liberation from the even the cycle in Hinduism, the cycle of rebirth, right? To you still have this concept of moksha and liberation and the end of suffering. And these things. But it is interesting too that the average person doesn't do that. The average person isn't content. The average person suffers as much as
I feel
the next guy.
With you when you said that the Eastern and Western cultures, they're like human made and everything.
Yeah.
But I feel nowadays, like as per my observation as well, after speaking to a lot of people around me for years and years, I feel I feel Eastern people are more attracted or more grasping towards Western culture as well, and
probably because of the material wealth that has been created.
Maybe, but for the Western world, I've seen that more and more people are getting interested in learning about the spirituality things and learning about Eastern culture more and adapting to it happily.
The Western world went barreling after the left hemisphere activities, and the East is all like floating in the right hemisphere meditative activities. So there is like definitely a desire for these two cultures to merge what they have to offer. Yeah.
And I feel I feel your podcast would do an amazing job when it comes to enlightening people about Buddhism and how people can actually get the utmost nirvana and that state.
It's not going to be easy. If you want to take I'm saying if you want to take the journey to nirvana, good for you. And you can go for it, and I recommend you go for it. But you may not get there in this lifetime. You may not get there. But the point is that it's a big journey. It is the Mount Everest. The spiritual Mount Everest is much more difficult than climbing Mount Everest is easy, especially today. But so like it is bigger than you think. Yeah. It is better than you think. Yes. And it is different than you think.
But I feel I 100% agree with you that it's not about directly reaching the nirvana state, but
there are many great base camps along the way.
Yes, and I feel with the podcast and with our discussions and with your stories, step by step, at least, I feel in this world today, people hold so much grudges and suffering. I've seen or heard a lot of stories about these things where people can't really come out of the past traumas or the incidents, or naturally are extremely a kind of personality who would hold grudges or who would get mad easily and hold on to the things which they should let go of. And I feel our podcasts and our topics and your explanation so well would hopefully help people attain at least that state of mind where they are in peace with themselves.
For sure. I think we have a lot to offer. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Are going to be back again next week with another episode. Maybe we'll continue with some stories about the historical Buddha, because he's the one who started it all, the wisdom, the path to enlightenment. Prasanna, anything to say?
Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and we hope to see you guys soon next week.
Bye.